In the spring of 1453,
Allahu Akbar!
one city stood between two worlds. That city was Constantinople.
ذلك الجيش.
For more than 1,000 years, this city had been one of the most important places on earth. It sat between Europe and Asia. It controlled trade, travel, and the movement of armies. Whoever controlled Constantinople controlled one of the most powerful positions in the world. For centuries, the city had been the capital of the Byzantine Empire, the last surviving part of the ancient Roman world. But by the 1400s, the Byzantine Empire was no longer strong. It had once ruled vast lands across the Mediterranean, but over time it had lost territory, wealth, and power. By the middle of the 15th century, the empire had become very small. In fact, most of its land had already been taken by a rising power known as the Ottoman Empire. And leading that empire was a young and ambitious ruler. His name was Sultan Mehmed II. When Mehmed became Sultan, he was still very young. Many people underestimated him. Some thought he lacked experience. Others believed he would struggle to control such a powerful empire. But Mehmed had a dream. He wanted to capture Constantinople. This dream was not new. For generations, Ottoman rulers had tried to conquer the city. Many armies had attacked its walls, yet the city always survived. Constantinople was famous for its defenses. The great Theodosian walls protected the city. These massive stone walls stretched for kilometers and had defended Constantinople for centuries. Invaders had tried again and again to break them. Most had failed. But Mehmed believed the time had finally come. So in 1453, he began preparing for one of the most ambitious military campaigns of his time. He gathered a large army. Historians believe that tens of thousands of Ottoman soldiers were part of the attack. They included infantry, cavalry, engineers, and elite troops known as the Janissaries. But Mehmed also prepared something unusual. He ordered the creation of massive cannons. These giant weapons were far larger than most artillery used before. Some of them were so big they required many men and animals just to move them. Mehmed believed these cannons could do what centuries of armies had failed to do. In April of 1453, the Ottoman army finally arrived outside the city. The siege had begun. Inside Constantinople, the defenders knew the danger. Their emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos, understood that the empire was facing its final test. The defending army was small compared to the Ottoman forces. Only a few thousand soldiers were available to protect the entire city. Some volunteers arrived from other parts of Europe, but the help was limited. The defenders had courage, but they did not have numbers. Soon, the Ottoman cannons began firing. The explosions were terrifying. Each blast shook the ground and sent massive stones crashing into the ancient walls. Sections of the walls began to crack. Every day, the Ottoman army attacked the defenses. Every night, the defenders tried to repair the damage. The siege turned into a constant battle of endurance. But the Ottomans had another advantage. They surrounded the city from land, and they also controlled much of the sea around it. Still, Constantinople had one important protection. A huge chain stretched across the entrance to the harbor, known as the Golden Horn. This chain blocked enemy ships from entering the harbor and attacking the city from that direction. It was a strong defense. Most commanders would have accepted it, but Mehmed decided to try something different. Instead of attacking the chain directly, he created an unexpected plan. He ordered his ships to be moved across land. Using wooden tracks and large teams of workers, Ottoman ships were slowly dragged over hills and across land. Then they were launched into the harbor behind the city. Suddenly, Constantinople was under threat from another direction. The defenders were shocked. Now they had to protect both the land walls and the harbor. The pressure on the city increased every day. Food supplies began to run low. People inside the city became afraid. Still, the defenders refused to surrender. They continued fighting, repairing walls, and resisting the attacks. But the Ottoman cannons kept firing. day after day, week after week. Eventually, the walls of Constantinople were badly damaged. Mehmed believed the moment for the final attack had arrived. On May 29, 1453, the Ottoman army launched its final assault. Thousands of soldiers rushed toward the damaged walls. The defenders fought desperately to stop them. The fighting was intense and chaotic. Arrows flew through the air, cannons roared, soldiers clashed in narrow breaches in the walls. For a time, the defenders managed to hold their ground. But the Ottoman army kept coming. Wave after wave of soldiers attacked the walls. Eventually, the defenses began to collapse. Ottoman forces broke through the city walls. The last emperor of the Byzantine Empire, Constantine XI Palaiologos, is believed to have died fighting during the final battle. After more than 1,000 years, the Byzantine Empire had come to an end. The fall of Constantinople had finally happened. For Sultan Mehmed II, it was the greatest victory of his life. He entered the city as the conqueror of Constantinople. Soon, the city would become the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Over time, Constantinople would also become known as Istanbul. Mehmed became famous as Mehmed the Conqueror. His empire now controlled one of the most important cities in the world. But the story does not end there, because this victory had consequences that Mehmed could never have predicted. The fall of Constantinople shocked Europe. Many trade routes between Europe and Asia now passed through Ottoman-controlled lands. European kingdoms began looking for alternative routes to reach Asia. Instead of traveling by land, they started exploring the oceans. This search for new routes helped begin the Great Age of Exploration. Explorers began sailing across unknown seas. Years later, figures like Christopher Columbus would attempt voyages that would change world history. New trade routes were discovered, new continents were explored, global empires began to rise. In other words, the fall of Constantinople helped push Europe into a new era of global expansion. The world became larger, more connected, and more competitive. So, while Sultan Mehmed II had achieved an incredible victory, the long-term effects of that victory helped reshape the global balance of power. Sometimes in history, winning a battle does not mean controlling what happens next. The conquest of Constantinople ended one empire, but it also helped begin a completely new chapter in world history. And that is why the story of the fall of Constantinople remains one of the most fascinating turning points in the past. A moment when one man won the war, but the future of the world changed in ways no one could fully predict.